morning, all my Rural Xers out there. This is Eric, the Rural Xer, here with you on an absolutely beautiful Sunday morning. And we are over here at Vonore, Tennessee, just outside of Vonore, at a place called Fort Loudon State Historic Park. And we came over here to explore this fort and take it in and explore around. And so we were fixing to get started, and we want to start in the gift shop and the little museum that they've got in there. So come along and join us, if you will. We're now overlooking Tellico Lake and part of the state park, and as you can tell, there is not any audio with the video for some reason. I don't know what happened, if the mic got turned off or got possibly partially disconnected from the phone. But anyway, we're just outside fixing to go in, as you can tell, into the visitor center and the museum. And this is one of the shelters or tents. We'd probably call it a pup tent, that was supposed to sleep up to 4 soldiers at a time. Now, I don't know exactly how they would have done that. It doesn't look quite big enough, but it shows 4 of them, as you can see in the picture, sleeping in there side by side. But that would be awful cramped, it looks to me like. And this just goes into frontier fortification, and keep in mind that this was back during the English rule of the colonies, before America had declared its independence from Britain. Now, I'm not going to go into much detail on these plaques. They're pretty much self-explanatory, so if you're interested in them, feel free to pause the video at any time and zoom in on them and read them for yourself. But I'm not going to bore you with going into much description on them or reading them myself. And here's a model of the fort as it appeared back in the day. We are actually on the lower side of the fort in Tellico Lake, and we'll be moving around the outside perimeter of the fort from the lower to the upper side. And on the upper side over here to our right, walk down to and enter the fort on this side up here. And as you can tell, it is definitely a wooden fort. And these are some of the artifacts that was, I'm sure, dug up around the fort area. And also keep in mind that the fort itself is probably not the original fort. It was probably built from plans that was found of what the fort, how the fort was actually built back in the day, and it was reconstructed. So it's a reconstruction, not the actual original fort itself. And these plaques goes into the different specialties that the soldiers would learn. You'd have carpenters, blacksmiths, just all kinds of different specialized trades that the soldiers would have to learn on top of being just a soldier themselves, because these forts were out in the wilderness, and they would have to be self-sustainable. So they would have to take care of themselves, and all of the needs that they needed would have to be supplied by themselves. And these are military organizations, the different organizations that was around in the colonies at the time. Now we're looking at the different types of armament, guns, muskets, rifles that the soldiers would have had back during that time, and these are some of the ones that not actually used, but representations of those. And these are just some descriptions, names and descriptions of the different rifles and guns that they used, and pictures, as you'll see here in a minute, of them and how they would be constructed. Right there. And more weaponry and armament, as you can see. And a representation of a cannon that might have been used back in the time. As you can see, we're now outside, fixing to walk down to the fort itself, and this is a plaque that's along the path there. Well, we've taken the walkway up to the fort, and we are now standing right outside the fort, fixing to go in and do some exploring around. So come along and join us while we do some exploring here. We're now inside the fort, looking at the inside walls of the fort, and looks like the platform that soldiers would use to actually defend it from the inside. Looking through, I don't know, over the top or something, it looks like it'd almost be too tall for them to actually be able to get up on. But I think, reading some of the stuff, this was actually built by the British to defend against the natives, Indians. And this is the platform for, obviously, cannons up here. Let's see, we can go up here and take a look around up here if I don't fall off. Now, you could definitely be able to get up here and shoot over these walls, the shorter pieces, very easily, but the other one, I just don't see how you could possibly get up and be able to look over the walls. The only thing I can figure is maybe they had holes somewhere where they could put their muskets and shoot through, possibly. Don't know. As you can see, there are multiple houses here, or cabins. They're actually pretty elaborate. Now, I don't think that these are the original ones. They've probably been either restored or rebuilt as replicas of what was here, but they are fairly big. We've actually been in this one and looked inside. They have this one open to the public. So let's walk over here and look in, peek in. And as you can see, there is crates with guns in them. That's probably how they would be shipped to the British who were defending this fort. And going on around, you have, I don't know, matches, grape shot, cannon, carriage, all kinds of crates for different, I take it, armor, guns and cannons and stuff like that. No, As you can see, I'm trying to hold this door open because if I let it go, it's going to be really dark in here. It'd be too dark to try to film anything. But this is what the inside of it looks like. And so there you have it. Now we're outside of that house that we were just in, kind of a storage house where there was a bunch of armory and all. Guns, cannons, stuff like that. Probably had black powder at one time. But this is overlooking a lake. I'm not really sure what lake this is. I can't remember the name of it. It is on 411 going up towards Maryville, but that's the lake. Of course, I'm sure it was not here whenever this fort was originally built. And I take it the fort was built up here on this hill, so obviously whenever they built and flooded the lake, this did not get flooded. And there is, I think, another part of this fort that's kind of separate, but I think it was used as maybe a watchtower or something that's across a body of water, part of the lake on the other side. I'll get a picture of it here in just a few minutes. Now here's the inside of one of these. I take it they're bunkhouses for the soldiers who were actually defending this fort, because as you can see on each side there is 4 bunk beds, so that would be 8 soldiers who could stay in here, and had a window over here with a shutter they could close. They could probably open it up to help defend in case the fort itself, the fort walls were breached. They could get in their cabins and try to defend it from in here possibly. And of course a table here in the center that they could use to eat at, fireplace over there where they could cook at and all. So they could basically live in here very, very comfortably, I would think, to a certain point for the day. Being that these were all built together, almost like row houses, all along this hill here, connected and everything. Not really sure what these were used for. Maybe families who were living here or soldiers, but we'll investigate one of them and find out. We're actually in the largest one down at the bottom of the hill, and as you can see, this actually has a place to prop up the soldiers' guns right here, kind of like a gun rack where they can lean them up against those, the barrels up against those little notches and hold them in place. And of course some more crates over here for storage, and of course along the walls over here you actually have bunk beds on either side of the window, plus one in between, but not up at the top. Fireplace over here, more bunk beds, and tables here in the center to eat at, plus more bunk beds over here. You have actually 3 sets of bunk beds for 6 men, and another window over here. So now here we are at the lower side of the fort, and as you can see, these platforms that goes along here, you can actually see slots along the wall where that they used to defend the fort through those with their rifles. So I don't know why the upper side didn't have that, but this makes a lot more sense that they were able to have stationed soldiers along through here and be able to use this to shoot at the enemy as they were approaching the fort. We're now standing outside the fort on the lower section of the fort, looking out across the lake. This is beautiful out here, absolutely gorgeous, but I'm sure back in the day this looked quite a bit different because this body of water was not here. It was probably only a river or a stream down the bottom of this valley, and all of this was filled up with trees and all. So I'm sure it looked quite a bit different way back in the day. And here we've got some garrisons. I don't know exactly what you would call these, but they've been used through the centuries as late as the World War II. They put them along the beaches of Normandy and to stave off any kind of invasion from that direction. So I take it that it's as a defense against the enemy, to make it harder for them to breach an area. Again, though, I do not know what it's called. Here's a bit of information that I hadn't seen before. This fort was originally surrounded by a dry moat, and young honey locust trees producing 4-inch thorns were planted in the bottom as a defense, similar to barbed wire is used today. And these things, whatever that's called, cheval de frise, or whatever that is a French term, French name for these devices, and they were used against as an obstacle against anti-cavalry. Is used as an anti-cavalry obstacle for men on horses. So they would station these just outside the gate, and then in a case of an attack, they would be swung in as an extra defense against the gate. So people, Indians who were trying to breach the fort, it would make it harder for them to try to get in. Now here's a view of the structures inside the fort from the lower portion of it. As you can see, the ones on the upper hill way up there, and it goes on around here, and there's some more structures on the other side. Now I don't know what these were used for, if they were used for families who were living here at the fort possibly, or more soldiers who were here defending the fort. Not really sure, but walk on over here. Here's what looks like a well right in front of us, with a part of a cannon, a cart for a cannon, and then here's some more buildings over here. Again, I don't know exactly what these were used for. Let me get a closer shot of them. There we go. Here's one of these structures down here at the bottom of the hill that's close to the outside fort wall, and Teresa brought it to my attention that this was actually used as a supply house, not for armory such as weapons and all, but more for food supplies. Whiskey, as you can see over here, or possibly beer, because even back in the colonial days, men were using beer because it was actually cleaner to drink than water was. So they had a lot of whiskey and beer back in those days. And as you can see, there's candles, cheese, pigtail tobacco. So it's all food stuff, supplies for survival, basically. Blankets, cheese, bacon, shifts, whatever that was. And you've got mustard, coffee, whiskey, brown sugar, black pepper, all kinds of stuff. Soap, leaf tobacco, a lot of different things in here. So this was like a supply house for the fort. These little cabins down here towards the bottom that are kind of separate from the rest of the living quarters were different shops. This one here We've already looked inside of it, but we'll go over there and take a look at it too, film a little bit of the inside of it. But that one there was a woodworking shop, and then this one here that's more open is a blacksmith shop. As you can see, there's the furnace for firing up, melting metal, heating metal up, and beating it in different, a vise, different woodworking tables, a grinding stone, and different things back over here. So this was used as obviously a blacksmith shop. And then on over here, we've got a woodworking shop. We can go in right here. There's a bench, probably used to work on wood, different pieces of equipment over here for shaping wood and all. Of course, you've got your wood pile over here that they would make the products out of, and a grindstone over here to smooth it out and stuff. So this is part of a woodworking shop. This structure here was used, it's down at the lower left area of the fort, lower left corner, I should say, of the fort, and it was used as, I think, more quarters, living quarters for soldiers. Now this one doesn't even have a wood floor in it. It's just got a dirt floor, and it's got some bunks over here and some more on over here as well. In this area, a couple. This could have been possibly officers, since it was just single cots instead of bunk beds. I don't know, but obviously this is more living quarters. Here's another structure out here that is a mystery to me, but it looks like some sort of a furnace. I don't know if it was used for blacksmithing, possibly, but you can see where there was a fire built back in there, or if it was used for making whiskey, moonshine, or whatever. I don't know. Someone who knows what this is, please leave in the comments below so we'll all know. More bunkhouses about halfway up the hill here. Actually, a little bit almost towards the top. As you can see, it's more bunkhouses and all for the soldiers. Here's a little bit of historic tidbit, Sallyport, talking about the small port that protected the doorway in the wall of a fortification. Now this tower that I was assuming was part of Fort Loudon, that's across Tellico Lake, and that is the name of this lake here. This body of water is Tellico Lake, which was built years later after the fort here, Fort Loudon, was built. This was actually part of another garrison, and I'll show you the, sorry about if it's jumpy a little bit. I had to zoom in quite a bit because I'm standing over at Fort Loudon shooting across the lake of this. But here is the information about this. This is called the Tellico Blockhouse, 1794 to 1807, U.S. Army Fort in Cherokee Nation. And it goes on to tell about when this was built, why it was built. It was built for the Indians by the U.S. government, and this was after Fort Loudon had fallen in earlier years. But I'll let you read all of that information. I'm sorry for the shadow that's getting in the way of my camera and myself. The sun's directly behind me shining down, so that is, and that's how it actually looked years ago. Now there is a way to access it, as you can see down there at the bottom. It says the blockhouse may be reached by a short access road just north of the bridge over Tellico Lake on Highway 411. So we may go over there and try to look at that real quick too as well. Here we are on the other side of the lake now in the parking lot just above the blockhouse. And just a little information here, in the process of getting in the truck and driving over there from Fort Loudon, I turned off my mic and forgot to turn it back on, so obviously there's not going to be any sound from that day, so I'll be narrating it from this point forward. What we're looking at here is another placard with a little more in-depth history of the Tellico blockhouse, which in a nutshell says that the blockhouse, or essentially another fort, was built in 1794 and was used until around 1807 for a total of about 13 years. It was built by the federal government for several reasons. That among those was, most importantly, as a diplomatic post between the new United States government and the Cherokee Indians, and to show military power in that region of the country, because there were quite a few skirmishes that broke out between the European settlers moving into the area at the time and the Cherokee Indians. And lastly, it was used to teach the Cherokee skills of the white settlers and to try and assimilate the Indians more into the lifestyles of their new neighbors by way of the Tellico factory, which was located inside the walls of the fort at the time. We're now approaching the outside of the Tellico blockhouse, as you can see, and there's not much to the blockhouse anymore. It does show the foundations of the walls around it. These might have been the actual walls that was built at the time, because most of these are built out of stone, so I would say that these are probably the original at least foundations of the walls. Now the fort itself, probably being made of wood, did not survive, so what parts of the fort are still there are recreations, not the actual such as that watchtower right there. But as you can see, the walls formed rooms around the fort, the blockhouse, and the main part of it on the inside is mostly just a courtyard with a flag in the center. But I don't know a whole awful lot about the construction of the blockhouse or anything such as that, what it was, what each of the rooms was used for. You'll just have to do your own research on that. I don't really know a whole awful lot about it. So you can just use your imagination as to what these were actually used for here. And as you can see, it's a beautiful view of Tellico Lake out there, and this was a very, very pretty day too. We're at the lower side of the blockhouse here, and there's looks like some foundation of some other structure over there as well. It looks like it was fairly large at the time. These looks like maybe foundations of cabins that was there, that was made out of wood instead of the stone. And it looks like there might have been and now we're actually looking across Tellico Lake at the Fort Loudon over there. And that's where we were just a little bit ago, looking across over here to the Tellico blockhouse. And walking back up here towards the watchtower. Now, we wasn't able to go into it, unfortunately. It was locked up. I don't know if they ever allow visitors in there or not, but they had it locked that day. And here's what looks like a freshwater well where they probably got their water from, their drinking water for the fort at the time. And of course they have a grate over to keep people from falling in, which is a good idea. And just looking up at the watchtower, probably used for keeping a watch for incoming enemies. But there is your look at the Tellico blockhouse. If you made it this far in the video and wasn't bored to death, congratulations and thanks so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. To keep up with our adventures, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can find the links to those pages in the description below. As always, thanks so much for watching, God bless, and we'll see you in our next video.